just pare things down to essentials. So, welcome to those who are joining us on multiple platforms and wherever you are, however you're joining us. Welcome to the Institute for Jewish Spirituality's daily mindfulness meditation practice, and you're welcome to join us. And as I mentioned, first things first is just to turn off anything you don't need right now and take your place. Give yourself the gift of a few deep breaths and this opportunity to reset and just be together, just to breathe together. We'll begin our formal practice in just 2 minutes. Our custom is to take this time to create a prayer for those in need of healing. So I invite you to take a moment to call to mind and hold in your heart anyone in your life who's in need of healing. That might include you. And if you're joining us on Zoom, you can put the name or names of those who in your life who are in need of healing in the chat, or whatever platform you're joining us on. You're welcome to do the same, or just say the name out loud or names out loud. And we want to take a moment to really visualize each person in our mind's eye, hold them in our hearts, just really be present and direct our hearts towards those in need of healing and pray for their refuah shlema, for their complete healing, healing of body and of spirit. And where healing or a cure is not possible, we pray that each person that we name and all those who are unnamed be blessed with strength and with comfort and with peace. And we continue to pray for our siblings in captivity, for their safety, their well-being, and their release, and for the safe return home of all those who are displaced by war. May they return home soon to their families and to their homes. And with that, let's begin. Welcome everyone to the Institute for Jewish Spirituality's daily Jewish mindfulness meditation practice. We gather as a community at this time each day, 12:30 Eastern, half an hour of Jewish mindfulness meditation practice each day led by a wonderful guest teacher. And we're delighted to have this opportunity to be together. Offered by IJS without charge. We want to thank you first and foremost for your presence, just for being here and creating this beautiful community and time and space to engage in mindfulness practice together. Of course, IJS is a nonprofit, and we rely on your support to make offerings like this possible. So thanks to Harry Gilboa, who's holding our tech space today, for sharing in the Zoom link, in the chat in the Zoom, a link for those who are moved to make a donation to support our work and make these offerings possible. And if you're not on Zoom, you can go to our website, jewishspirituality.org, and make a donation there. Thanks in advance. No donation is too small. If you're in a position to offer a gift of $180 or more, you can sponsor one of our daily meditations. And we also offer our Jewish yoga studio that meets on Mondays at 11 a.m. Eastern, 45 minutes of embodied Jewish practice led by Cantor Lissy Shamash each Monday at 11 a.m. And we're about to turn to our practice. Just want to mention before we begin, a reminder that we have an upcoming retreat for young adults, those in their 20s and 30s, in early August at Wisdom House in Litchfield, Connecticut. It's our first ever Jewish mindfulness meditation retreat for young adults specifically. So if you're in that category, we hope you'll check it out. And if you're not in that category, we hope you'll pass the word along to those who are. And we have a wonderful group gathering. The faculty is stellar. Yael Shai, Rebecca Schisler, and Kohenet Shira Halev Baif will be leading that retreat. So please do check that out if it's relevant for you. And with that, I'm very happy to turn things over a little bit earlier than usual, give us a little bit extra time for our practice today. So delighted to welcome Cantor Kerith Spencer-Shapiro of Wilshire Boulevard Temple in Los Angeles, who has been leading us as part of our amazing roster of Jewish mindfulness meditation teachers. And I want to encourage people to also follow Cantor Kerith on social media, where she offers a lot of beautiful bite-sized mindfulness practices as well. So, and I'm mentioning that actually Kerith has generously offered to lead today in place of our friend and teacher Yiska Smith, who is unavailable today as originally scheduled. Will be leading our sit next Wednesday. So, Kerith, thank you so much for your generosity and leading us today. Great to be with you. I'll also turn it over to you.
It's wonderful to be with all of you. Thank you so much, Mark, and wishing Refuah Shlema to Yiska, and happy to step in today. I always do like to begin with a little bit of gratitude for the Institute for providing this space and this container for us. So I'm going to start with some words from Rabbi Rachel Barenblatt, and this comes from 7 Poems for Ma'ariv. The exterior's a little shabby. Could use a coat of paint.
Sorry, Kerith. I'm going to ask. Apparently, it's a little soft, so I
Okay,
need you to
I
speak
will
up a little bit. I want
try
to
to
just do that
speak up a
before
little
we
more.
get too into it. Okay, thanks.
Great. And I'll start that poem once more. This is a poem by Rabbi Rachel Barenblatt from 7 Poems for Ma'ariv. The exterior's a little shabby. Could use a coat of paint. A bit worn after a hard year. Not a lot of curb appeal. Most people walk right by. Not you. You see. You see the mezuzah in the doorway, the light in the living room. You see my heart, tender and afraid, no one will ever want. Tell me again that I'm worthy, even when I feel most broken. Tell me again that my strength is beautiful and makes me whole. How many thresholds have you passed through today? I decided yesterday that I was going to make it a practice of counting and being aware and mindful about each doorway or gate that I passed through when I woke up this morning. Whether or not it had a mezuzah on it, I made a choice to treat each threshold that I passed through as if it did have one. So I'm going to ask you just to take a moment, and if it's helpful, you can close your eyes, or you don't have to. If you have pen and paper, you can even take out and journal and write down and think about, from the moment you opened your eyes, how many thresholds did you walk through today? Note each doorway, each gate. Did you enter and exit a highway? Does that count as a threshold for you? And yes, if you walked through the same place once, you may count it as a threshold. My count was perfect. It came to 36. It's still early here on the West Coast. So whatever your count was, it's perfect as well. So the mezuzah is such a wonderful signpost for us. I like to think of the mezuzah sometimes not just as a religious item, but as if it carries almost some magic with it. It feels like a talisman to me. Every time I pass through a doorway that has a mezuzah on it, it's an opportunity really to connect to my source, connect to what it is that inspires me, to take a breath, to take a moment, And we have very few reminders in our lives to do that. And the other thing that I love about the mezuzah is its outer beauty and inner beauty that I'm aware of simultaneously. It's ancient, it's modern, it connects us to Torah, it connects us to text. So as we sit today, I'm going to invite all of us to think about how we can utilize this practice of stopping and connecting to the mezuzah as we meditate. What thresholds do we journey through as we sit? Can we be mindful of each moment as it passes and take time between each stop along the way and connect to our grounding? And perhaps even reach out to kiss an imaginary mezuzah as we do so. So any kind of threshold that you feel yourself moving through as you sit, it could even be each breath. It could be a new thought as it arises and your ability to notice that thought. It could be the threshold of recognizing the thought and coming back in through the door. As someone asked, does it count if we walk out and walk in through the same door? It could be that noticing that thought and then the threshold again of coming back to the grounding. So I'll invite you to go ahead and find a comfortable way to sit if you haven't done so already. And even now, noticing the threshold of coming into presence. Noticing the doorway that you entered as you become aware of your body, of your physical self. And opening the door to noticing the breath as it moves through the body. Take a few moments to sit with that breath. Paying attention to each inhalation and each exhalation, treating each one as if you're entering and exiting the doorway to your physical self along with the breath. And noticing the turning point, as each inhalation turns to exhalation, as each exhalation turns to inhalation. And at that moment of transition, perhaps you take time to kiss that imaginary mezuzah, saying, I am here. Connecting to that which grounds you, that which gives you purpose as you enter and exit. We're going to sit quietly for 10 minutes now. And as we do so, I'll invite you to stay with the breath and to continue noticing the threshold as you pass from inhalation to exhalation. And as you breathe, if your thoughts should carry you elsewhere, you can notice that. And notice that threshold that you pass through with your mind taking you somewhere else. And invite yourself to come back through that doorway that leads back to consciousness of the breath. Each time saying, I am here, and connecting to that which grounds you. Passing through that threshold back into noticing where you are. You can slowly open your eyes if they've been closed. The mezuzah, for me, is this wonderful reminder that every time I walk through a doorway, I have a chance to leave behind anything that I don't want to take with me as I walk through, and to gird myself and garner strength from what it is that inspires me to bring it in the next place. Perhaps I've been given a gift at a meeting that I don't feel like carrying with me. I can leave it behind. So I want to close us out this section of our time together with the words of Shema.
Thank you so much, Kerith, Spencer-Shapiro, for leading us again so beautifully today through the thresholds of our experience. And we seal the practice as we do each day, offering an opportunity for those who are in mourning. If you're observing a yahrzeit, an anniversary of a death, or if it's your custom, or if you're moved to join in the mourner's Kaddish, you're invited to do so in a moment. And if you're not reciting Kaddish, to please stay present for those who are. Offer your compassionate support. Those on Zoom or wherever you are welcome to put the name or names of anyone you are honoring today as you recite Kaddish. And if you are, I invite you to join me by rising in body or in spirit, and you can unmute at this time. Yit Gadal, Yit Kadash, Shemei Rabbah. Oh, Harry, can we get the words up on the screen? Sorry, I lost it. Let's start again. Thanks. Yit Gadal, Yit Kadash, Shemei Rabbah. Yamad, Yibrach, Yimtei, V'yimlich, Lo Yimtei.
חייך ליום אחד ובחייתך בישראל.
God is
Amen.
Amen.
Ela mikol mirchata v'shirata tush b'shvat nechemata v'ran ba'alma ish lama rabba maya v'chaim aleinu v'shalom amen. Shalom v'mecha uyas hashalom.
Say shalom Bimrava. Via say shalom. Amen. Kali Israel. Holy Amen. Amen.
Friends, thanks so much for joining us today for our daily Jewish mindfulness meditation. And if you're leaving us now, I invite you to join us tomorrow to sit into Shabbat. We'll be led tomorrow by Sarah Waxman of the At the Well Project, as is our custom on or near the full moon or the new moon of the month. And we're coming up on the full moon of the month of Tammuz over the weekend. Sarah will be leading us tomorrow as we move into the fullness of the month of Tammuz. Looking forward to that, sitting into Shabbat together. You're also invited to stay on for conversation with our teacher today, Dr. Kerith Spencer-Shapiro, about today's practice with the mezuzah and the threshold. And if you'd like, you can just continue to sit with us. You can turn off the sound on your device and continue to use this time for your own practice if you'd like. Welcome to do that. Kara, thank you so much. It's interesting that we've been doing this, as I, said, this is July, so.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, almost 4.5 years have been meeting Monday through Fridays at this time. I actually don't remember another session that I've been on, at least, where the mezuzah and the threshold was an image we used, and it's such a powerful and accessible image and a kind of primary Jewish spiritual practice that lends itself to mindfulness so beautifully. I don't think you used the word liminal in your introduction, but I think I want to bring that in because that's a word and a phrase that people might be familiar with, where it's kind of where the magic happens, in that in between, meaning in the present. And it's really quite amazing that the mezuzah, whether people have a mezuzah on their thresholds or not, but there's something that moving from one physical place to another, making that transition, that Judaism invites us to mark that as a spiritual moment. And I really appreciated that you invited us to think about how many thresholds we'd already moved through. And I don't know if you saw there were some questions in the chat. I want to start with the questions in the chat. People were saying like, well, I opened a book. Does that count? Do emotional thresholds count? So what would you say about that? Like when you asked that question about to consider how many thresholds we've moved through today, what did you have in mind?
So when I saw those questions, my heart just grew tenfold because I think that's what this practice invites us to do. Is so for me, I've been moving around a lot today. So I'm thinking about the physical thresholds that I've moved through. But if I were perhaps having a day that was a little more stationary for me, I might be more expansive in my thinking about what those thresholds were for me. What this practice allows us to do is to utilize any thresholds that we find ourselves moving through. And guess what? You're in charge. It's your body, it's your mind. You get to choose what counts as a threshold for you. And I think if we start doing this, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to use the breath
Mm-hmm.
as this idea of this entering and exiting, because it's a very clear threshold of that breath actually coming out through the gates of our mouths and then coming, or our nose, and then coming back in. Um, that truly every single moment is this opportunity to stop and really check in and be truly present. So it's yes, if that is not overwhelming for you, because when we're not sitting and having the time to really focus on it, it might be too much to notice every single threshold, to notice every breath. Um, and the practice that we engage in is practice for re-entering the world. And we can't put the expectation on ourselves to bring that mindfulness into every moment as we walk through the world and have to do all the things that we do and interact with others, because that can lead us to feeling like I'm not doing it right, I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't notice a threshold, that's okay. And if we catch ourselves not noticing a threshold, we're actually noticing a threshold. So just without judgment, anytime we see that, notice it, it's a chance to check in.
Well, I really love the idea. It's just like a great Jewish mindfulness teaching to place a mezuzah at that liminal space threshold between inhalation and exhalation and inhalation. And the mezuzah, as you ended with the Shema, because that's what's in the mezuzah. That's like a reminder of the oneness. And Moshe is asking, the mezuzah marks the liminality in space between one space and another, inside, outside, etc. But also is related, and we get the mitzvah of that from the story of leaving Egypt. So what's in terms of the relationship to that. So what occurred to me actually was that is that in that at that threshold we have a moment of freedom to choose, right? Like you were inviting us to choose, okay, what do I want to bring from what I just came from into the next moment? Or what do I want to let go of and not bring into the next moment, right? And to remind her that we don't have to carry that forward. Each moment we have, at least in theory, the freedom to choose where we want our mind to go, what we want to bring, what we want to let go of, or at least to choose our intention, at least, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I think what's happened for me today, just making that choice to notice all of those places that I was leaving and entering, um, that it's really allowed me to think about what is it that I want to bring specifically actually to the other um, beings that I encounter. And then noticing what is being gifted to me. What gifts do I want to continue to carry with me? And which gifts don't really feel like gifts at all?
When you say, yeah, I wasn't sure if you were saying gifts with air quotes or not.
I was, yeah.
I thought so. I thought so.
And I can leave those, I can leave those at the doorstep. It's,
You were crossing the sarcasm. I don't know if you've seen Inside Out.
Oh, just playful.
That's okay.
Playful.
That's all right.
Yeah.
That's all right. That's love. All right. So I'm going to ask here's another question here. Lori, I really like, Lori was imagining a mezuzah by my brain and by my heart. I love the idea of an inner mezuzah, right? That's fantastic. Um, and is asking the question, what are aspects of the inner mezuzah? Well, she was saying as a reminder of Anochi Hashem, I am God, right? The Shema that's inside. softening every thought and feeling, to remind us that every little thing is going to be all right. Bob Marley, thanks for bringing Bob Marley in. My question is, what other aspects of the inner mezuzah you derive or pull from when you touch the imaginary mezuzah? I love that. Touching into that inner mezuzah, that God is an ever-present companion in our breath and being. This is beautifully said. I don't know if you have anything to add to that. I don't know. That's just a beautiful
It's
in practice.
Thank you. It's a beautiful It's a beautiful teaching, and I think gets really to the heart of what I had hoped to bring. So I'm glad that we have created this space together.
And Pam is saying, I never thought about entering Zoom rooms as threshold, but we will now. It's interesting because I don't know why, but we have never gotten around to doing that. But when people are in the waiting room, come into Zoom, I don't know, we dropped this idea, but we thought, and some places do, maybe you do it, in your experience, have a kind of standing message for people in the waiting room that basically is kind of a mezuzah for that waiting room, right?
Yeah.
To have to set an intention as you move in. Well, you're not just sitting around waiting, like we're moving from one space to another. So that rekindles my intention to resurrect that idea. And thank you. This is just so lovely, Pam. Thank you. Thanks to Harry for being the guardian of the threshold and for all of us for crossing the threshold together. Just such a beautiful, beautiful image. Kerith, since you, not just because you're a cantor, but since you are also a cantor, I just want to lift up also, although we're talking about the mezuzah as this marking this liminal space, of course, this tradition also really focuses on liminal time and especially dawn and dusk as the most powerful times of the day, the most accessible, the times when God or the divine is most accessible, right? The evening and morning service. Anything to say about that, Kenner, Kerith? In terms of your what you notice about transitions of the time of day and being clued into that. By the way, people sometimes when they ask me about this piece of artwork behind me, that which is by an Israeli artist whose name I don't know, unfortunately, but it shows the different halachic times of the day, the shift in the light over the course of the day, which I happen to love.
That's so beautiful. I've noticed it before and thought it was so pretty, but I didn't. I thank you for sharing what. Yeah.
This down here is Chatzot Halayla, the midnight.
Yeah.
And up there is beginning of the dawn, just the beginning of the flickering of light.
Yeah.
So tuning in anyway, so like we can notice the thresholds just going through the part of the day, right? Threshold from and the rabbis in debating about when do you say the Shema, right, are actually obsessed with when do we actually cross that threshold, between night and day.
I'm not sure that I have so much to say about it, particularly as a Chazan, but I will say that for me, and I don't know if that holds true for others who are here, that different periods of the day hold different emotional space for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that is reflected through our prayer services. So noticing like what am I carrying emotionally, and I know people did bring that up as well in the chat. I actually just saw something in the chat that I would love to address. Eileen said, sometimes I feel fearfully stuck at a threshold. Anybody else? I think that's such an important point. And sometimes you just need to sit in the doorway. And it's okay to be stuck there. You might have a good cry. And just notice that there's a mezuzah on that doorway and you're in a holy space, even when you're stuck.
Well, that's the thing about liminal spaces. I think also there's a lot that's been written about this, I think, about being in a liminal space, about it being an uncomfortable place.
Yeah.
Which is why we spend so much of our energy, I assume, ruminating about the past or ruminating about the future, because it's hard hard to be in the present.
Yeah.
Although, we're talking about the freedom, it's uncomfortable. And the midbar, the wilderness in the story in the Torah, represents that. That's where all the action happens. And it's really fraught. It's hard.
I think also, if you wanted to work with that place of being stuck in that uncomfortable place,
Hmm.
could be an interesting but perhaps very challenging practice to stay longer in the place where the breath turns.
Mm.
That is an uncomfortable place, and we leave it very quickly. We walk through that doorway like that, right?
Mm.
So staying where the exhalation, when you run out of breath, staying there for a couple beats before you come to inhalation, and the same from inhalation to exhalation. Could be a very interesting practice for those who are feeling stuck. And when I say interesting, I do want to point out that it would be a challenging practice. So,
Hmm.
think about it if you want to do it, and I'd love to hear if anyone tries that out, what it might be like for them.
Do you happen to have the link to the Rachel Barenblatt poem that you started with? Any chance?
I am so sorry. I don't. It was in my poetry files, and because it was a quick turnaround for getting ready
Yeah.
for today, I don't. But I believe it's available on Ritual Well.
Okay. Remember do you have the name of it or no?
If my brain is, it's seven. It's part of a longer poem called Seven Poems for Mariv.
Oh, okay, great. All right.
Mm-hmm.
7 poems for Mariv. All right, Google, do your thing, everyone. Kerith, thank you so much. This was really such a rich practice, really very powerful, I think, for all of us. And thank you, extra thanks for willingness to step in today and rearranging your schedule to make that possible.
My
Much
pleasure.
gratitude for that. Thanks to you, to Harry, everyone here. We hope to see you tomorrow to practice with Sarah Waxman and sit into Shabbat together, everyone. And if we don't see you, Shabbat Shalom. See
Shabbat
you soon.
Shalom.
Be well.